Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's Nero, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about my experiences reading for the first time Fyodor Dostoevsky and his text White Nights. Now, I'd say this is one of my favorite classic books. I haven't read too many classics so far, only about 5, but this has been one of my favorites so far. This has been a text I've really kind of sat with and let it simmer. Even while reading it as well, I took a lot of time to really try comprehending every single sentence and making sense of it. And I have some points kind of written down on my phone and on a notebook here. And I just want to talk about my kind of initial thoughts about the book, what I thought while reading it. I'll talk to you guys about some specific quotes and some things that I liked. If you haven't read the book so far, I urge you to go read it. It's a great book in my opinion. And I'll tell you guys a little bit about some things I thought about afterwards as well when reading or listening to other people's reviews about the book, because I think that can definitely shape how you interpret a book afterwards, and how that can shape your own opinions on it, whether you like it or not. And me specifically, I'm not sure if I like that aspect of it, because I like my own opinions, and then listening to other people's opinions kind of contradicts my own. But I think that's a great learning opportunity to see how other people interpret books, and to compare it to your own, and to still hold your own opinions about pieces of literature. And I think that's why I like Dostoevsky's text White Nights, because I had my own opinions about it, but then I was able to compare it with the opinions of others, if that makes sense. So I'll start with my initial thoughts about the book. Firstly, I want to say this book has some great writing. I think the writing is one of the things that stood out to me. I think a lot of people, when they read the book, they may not like the plot of it or find it boring, but I think the writing was one of the things that just immediately stood out to me. There was a lot of points where I had to kind of put the book down because I just needed to reflect on a piece of writing, or I put the book down and I was like, wow, that was a great line, right? Firstly, going into this text, I knew it was a text about unrequited love, and I didn't really know what that meant beforehand, honestly. I had to kind of look it up, and I understood going into this text, okay, it's going to be about a story about a guy who falls in love with this girl on a bridge, and he's just not going to get that same love back. So that's what I was expecting going into it, and it is basically kind of what happened. But my initial thoughts of this character, this dreamer, the narrator in this book was, he's a dreamer. He's I would say he's an introverted person. He's really lonely. And I was able to see aspects in him that I think, although he's such like an absurd character in that he lives in these fantasies in his mind, and that's how he spends his day, I could see aspects of him that could relate to, I would say, like, I would say to a certain extent to myself, because I would consider myself an introvert, and how I spend a lot of time just on my own, and comparing that to the words he was saying on how he was just alone and he lived his life alone. I felt connected to that in certain aspects, not to the extent or degree that he was mentioning, but I could see where he was coming from, and how that led to him being attached to Nastenka when he was first introduced to her, right? How any sort of attention for him allowed him to just quickly connect with her, right? And to fall in love, right? I think when I was reading this, I did assume that he did fall in love with her. I think there's people online where they're just talking about he didn't fall in love with her. It was more so just a cure for his loneliness. And, after hearing these afterthoughts, I agree with that. But while reading the text, I initially interpreted it as him just falling in love with the girl. He was alone and he fell in love with her, not as a sort of cure, or not looking at it as a bad thing. More so just him just falling in love with this girl. But then I also thought this girl, Nastenka, she was kind of, I wouldn't say, I was interpreting it as her kind of using him to get over her own kind of unfortunate event where, her previous kind of lover left her. And I was interpreting it as her using the narrator, the dreamer, as a way to heal from this event, right? Because he found her while she was crying, right? So just that initial moment of relief that she gets from meeting the dreamer, and that sort of distraction, and that sort of help, is what she kind of looks for throughout the entire book, is what I felt like. And I also found the dreamer to be quite annoying. I would say not annoying in the sense where he was just annoying to listen to, but annoying in the fact that he just continued to go after Nastenka after she had continually be fawning over another person, right? Her previous lover, and he was still there, even though he had fallen in love with her. He was still there helping her, and like I could see where he was coming from. Maybe he just loved her as a person, as a friend, and he was helping her, but that's not the way it read for sure. So he was putting himself in a position of pain for, the final kind of act of the book, where it's just like he gets ditched because her previous lover comes back, right? And it is quite sad, but at the same time, he put himself into that position of pain, right? She was waiting for this previous lover to come back, and he knew if he came back, it would be done for him. And that's what happened, right? I think the dreamer, he's an interesting character, in that there's aspects of him that I think a lot of people can relate to, in that sort of, I would say, not loneliness, but the sort of kind of living in your own head, and kind of making up things, and being satisfied with that, rather than actually going out into the real world and living the world for what it is and what it offers. Because he does stay cooped up in his room, and has lived his entire life like that, without any human interaction. I believe he had no human interaction with girls or anything like that, and it is a really sad kind of background that he came from. You can see how it impacted the way he fell in love with Nastenka. Another thing I've written down here is the expression of emotion. I think is one of my favorite things that I find in classic books. Just how well they express the human mind, or love, for example, right? I'll pull up some certain quotes that just kind of show you the insides of a human mind, and can really reflect what the human mind is thinking, or how a certain emotion is. I'll pull a certain quote up. But meanwhile, your soul yearns and pleads for something else, and in vain does the dreamer rake through his old dreams, as if they were ashes, searching in the ashes for at least some little spark, in order to fan it into flames, and with this rekindled fire warm his heart, which has grown cold, and resurrect in himself once again everything that he had held dear, that had touched his soul, that had made his blood boil, that had brought tears to his eyes, and had so splendidly deceived him. It's just great writing. I don't know, the expression of certain things, and the way they use their words so precisely. Every single word, every single sentence has a contribution to the effect that Dostoevsky is trying to create, and the image he's trying to create in your mind. I think the writing is one of my favorite things about this book. And this is one of the first books that, as I mentioned, I really took the time to really analyze and to really focus on the text itself, right? Rather than the plot behind the text. I wanted to focus on the text at the forefront, and that's what I did, and I really did enjoy this book when I did that. This is another quote in reference to the dreamer talking about Nastenka. So he said, my Nastenka was so timid, so afraid, that it seemed she understood at last that I loved her, and she took pity on my poor love. And so it is that when we are unhappy, we more strongly feel the unhappiness of others. Feeling is not shattered, but becomes concentrated. It's so hard to put it into words and to break it down, but you can just realize there's so much emotion in this writing, and I think that's what I fell in love with. Like another line, I love you because you didn't fall in love with me. Why someone else in your place would have started bothering me, pestering me, sighing, falling ill, but you're such a dear. And then later on, Nasenka says, I will love you almost as much as I love him, in reference to her previous lover. And it's just like, there's so much pain in the writing. Maybe I just haven't read enough books, right? Maybe I need to read more books, but I just really felt the pain in the writing there, and I felt for the dreamer's character and how he was kind of being like betrayed in a way, but not being betrayed because he was never owed something in the first place. I can talk about this book for a long time. I know I'm yapping and this video is getting long now, but I can talk about this book for a long time. I think that's why I wanted to create this YouTube video, because I used to have a TikTok, or I still have a TikTok page where I post my thoughts about books and stuff, but I don't really go into these longer rants about them because TikTok is more so, I feel like I'm more focused on like, there is a content dilemma. I was watching a video by Joe Bart, and he was just talking about the content dilemma and how, you know, there's things that you can be focused on. And one of those things, I think, with my content on TikTok is growth. So I'm really focused on like using all the new sounds, everything to grow my TikTok, rather than actually wanting to post and to express my thoughts and, you know, connect with other people who may have different thoughts or may have similar thoughts, and to really spread kind of my love for literature and for books. I think that's why I love YouTube, to really just sit here for 15 minutes and talk about something because I can, right? I think it's just a great book if you have a chance to read it. I'm hoping if you've watched this review, you've already read it because I've spoiled a bunch. This is also one of the books that I kind of annotated for the first time and really left my thoughts in. I think that's such a beautiful experience, and I'm going to do that with majority of the books I read from now on, because, you know, I think this book is a piece of me now, right? And my thoughts are in this book, and my interpretations are in this book, and if someone was to read it, they would be able to see a glimpse into my mind and what I found to be important. So I think this book was a really great book, and I do plan on reading a bunch of Dostoevsky's texts after this. Thank you guys for watching. That is my yap about White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Take care, guys.